Hey, DB fam. Welcome back to Feed Me the Facts. So if you've been with DB for a while, you know that we used to do RDN spotlights. If you're new to the Diversified Dietetics community, welcome. Back in the day, we had a blog post and we would do RDN spotlights that highlighted various IDs of color doing what they do, whether it was in a traditional career or non-traditional career. And it was so great to just hear their stories. We have not been able to do those in a while just because of other programming, but all of them are still on our blogs. You can go back and read them, diversifieddietetics.org/blog, and see those. But we thought it'd be really great to transition some of those into Feed Me the Facts episodes that centers around what does it look like to be a X, Y, and Z dietitian or nutrition professional? Because we hope to speak to other folks that are maybe diet technicians or in the lactation space. So just a really like a career deep dive. So this is the first of those episodes. We hope to have a couple each season. And I'm so excited that Danielle got to talk with Luis Gonzalez, who's a nutrition communications dietitian with an organization called Eat Well Global. If you haven't heard of them, we'll link all of the details in the show notes. Luis has a really interesting background from being a food service director to now in his role working with dietitians and supporting organizations and brands. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation and enjoy getting to know more about this career. If you have other ideas for what careers you want to hear more about, please let us know. You can email us at fmtf@diversifieddietetics.org because we want to hear what careers interest you. But we have a lineup of some folks that just have really cool, again, traditional and non-traditional careers in the space of nutrition. Speaking of knowing about what RDs are doing and really interesting work, our Diversified Dietetics Summit is coming up in April. We just went to save the date. We're actively finalizing the speaker lineup. So really be on the lookout for stuff related to the summit in your email. Hopefully you're subscribed to the Squeeze. And we're also in the middle of our Fund the Future campaign, which is how we're able to fund the work that we do. So if you are looking to give a donation at the end of the year, especially you're in the spirit of giving, please head on over to our website and support the Fund the Future campaign. It really programs this podcast, our mentor program, our dietetic internship program, all of the resources that we're able to provide both students and interns and educators, and scholarships. So go on over, please support this work. We really are dedicated to increasing the racial diversity in the field and having community in this space because we deserve it. So enjoy the episode. I really hope you learn a lot from this because I know I did. Welcome to Feed Me the Facts, the podcast dedicated to representation and inspiration for students and professionals of color pursuing careers in nutrition and dietetics. I'm Deanna Bellany Lewis, registered dietitian and co-founder of Diversified Dietetics. Every episode will bring you expert insights, the latest trends, and personal stories that inspire. Whether you're new to the field or a seasoned pro, this is your space to learn, grow, and connect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Feed Me the Facts. It's Danielle, and I'm so excited today to have Luis Gonzalez here with us today. Luis is an account manager at Eat Well Global, a strategy and communication agency in the food and health industries. Prior to this role, Luis spent years in long-term care setting, working in clinical and food service management roles. Luis, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. So you guys may remember seeing Luis in the DDRDN Spotlight a few years back. And so we are excited to connect with you again and see where maybe your career has progressed and learn a little bit more about what you do. So we're just going to dive right in. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your RDN journey and how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of dietitians have a variety of different paths for where they end up. I started my journey as many other dietitians do. I graduated with my bachelor's, and then a few months after that, I was able to get the consultant contract position at a long-term care setting, which eventually turned into a full-time role. And then after a few years of doing that, my responsibilities included the nutrition assessment of all the residents in the long-term care setting in the skilled nursing facility, as well as seeing some of the residents in the independent and assisted living portions of the community, and also some food service related responsibilities, particularly around making sure all the state regulations in Florida, which is where it was at the time, were being followed and all that fun stuff. And then a couple of years after that, I had the opportunity to go to a different skilled nursing facility and have a bigger role. So at that point, I was the director of the dietary department. So I oversaw an awesome team of dietitians, but then also a lot of my responsibilities were in the production side. So overseeing kitchen staff, the menus, customer service, and all those great things. But after a few years of doing that, I got a little bit burnt out and I was looking for different opportunities. I had just received my master's and I was looking for career growth essentially. And I saw my current role as the most that I could do in that area of nutrition. The only thing that I could have done would be to go to a bigger facility, but I wasn't sure that I was quite ready for that. And so I was looking for different opportunities. And I spoke to a lot of other dietitians. I researched quite a bit non-traditional roles for dietitians. And after doing a little bit of research, I was also really into photography at the time. So I was doing a little bit of food photography. And so I realized that there's this whole world of nutrition communications. I connected with some people that eventually led me to the role that I am today.
I think that your story resonates with a lot of people in terms of, maybe reaching some burnout in a clinical environment and looking for something that is non-traditional, something that maybe combines some passions that you already have with still being able to use that nutrition background. And I think it's important, especially today as we're relying more and more on technology to connect with each other, to share information. So what would you say is so special about working in nutrition communication?
Yeah, it's a few different things for me. So, as I mentioned, I was really into photography. So, I was also looking into food writing, and I completed a food writing and photography certificate program. So, that was top of mind. And I was looking at dietitians that were in the media, whether writing, social media. And what they were doing was pretty cool because they get to use their nutrition science knowledge and able to translate research into practical terms while communicating it to a broader audience. And so I thought to myself, it's really cool. Could I do something in here? I looked at different nutrition magazines that were doing something like that. And the ability to use your nutrition science background while also being creative in your writing or photography or any other similar skill, that was really appealing to me. As much as I like having an impact through patient care, I knew that I could have a bigger impact by doing something a little bit different and also using more of my creative skills and just having the opportunity to continue to grow and be more creative in the role. And again, after doing a little bit of research and speaking with some dietitians, it seemed like I could bring all of those skills into this new area of dietetics and just have a bigger impact on different populations and communities.
Yeah, I like that, really looking at your lasting footprint, right? Like how many people you can affect at once. Now, you work on the other side of nutrition communications currently. Can you tell us a little bit about like what your typical day or week looks like in your current role?
That's a great question. And to be honest, it took me a little bit of time to know myself, how to talk about it and how to explain it to others. Because even though I was working in it, it was difficult to explain to someone who was not in it. But I can share that a lot of my week is essentially project management. So depending on the type of project that you're working on, there's a lot of communication that happens between internal teams, client teams, and just making sure that everything that we have aligned on and are moving towards happens, right? So we'll align on a strategy and then we have to bring it to life. So it's a lot of meetings. We do everything via Zoom or like 99% of things over Zoom since we are a remote company. And we're always on a Zoom call with the client or with the team internally to make sure that different initiatives are moving forward. So that would be making sure that copy is being drafted. So any language that we may be using for newsletters, reaching out to any potential partners. So if we're developing a webinar, we typically look for subject matter experts on that topic. And that communication and negotiation, contracting, all our stuff happens on a regular basis. So I would say it's a lot of project management and just making sure that things continue to move forward. It's kind of in the name, but I always like to say, we do a lot of communication to make sure that everyone is on the same page.
Yeah. Now, to go a little deeper for people who maybe aren't as familiar with the company that you work for or the type of work that you do, brands and companies reach out to you all to manage, right? Like how they're portrayed in the media or to get a message across. And then you guys from there decide on a strategy. Is that kind of right in terms of what you do?
Yeah, that's pretty close to the mark. So we work with a lot of food and pharmaceutical and agricultural companies, as well as commodity boards, retailers, and global health organizations. Our direct client contacts tend to be primarily individuals within the organizations that advance health, nutrition research, or other similar initiatives within the organization. Oftentimes, they are fellow dietitians or
Yep.
healthcare professionals, but not exclusively. And what we do is we provide bespoke insights, strategy, and engagement services to drive impact with key opinion leaders that ultimately elevate the impact, reputation, and the return on investment on our clients. That can look a few different ways, but that's essentially a top line view of it.
Yeah. And I think that provides better context. So earlier you mentioned oftentimes you're working with clients that want a subject matter expert to speak on a specific topic, maybe for a webinar or maybe to promote or elevate a brand or an item. So this is where I think a lot of people are looking to get into nutrition communications, right? Can you provide any insight into the other side of nutrition communications? So some of the dietitians or other subject matter experts that you may partner with to help out a client for some of the solutions.
Yeah, so depending on the project, but we do look for subject matter experts on a variety of topics. If we are developing a webinar, say on gut health, we are going to look for a dietitian that has proven expertise on the topic and then also expertise in communication. So a lot of times we do look for dietitians that have a communications background, not anything super formal, but just shown that they have experience in speaking to media or speaking to webinars or public speaking or anything of that sort. But then we might go a totally different way if we're speaking about a product on social media that provides X benefit, then we would look to dietitians that either have a platform or can expertly speak to that specific message. And really, we, may provide some guidance, but we lean on the experts, the dietitian in that space, to really translate that message, translate the science to their audience in the best way that they know how and how they think it would best impact and provide value to their different audiences.
Yeah. And and I guess recently there's been some back and forth in the media itself about some misconceptions maybe about healthcare professionals, dietitians specifically, um, speaking on behalf of brands or providing that subject matter expertise. What are some of those misconceptions that maybe you encounter frequently, and how do you highlight the benefit for the brand or the company in having this dietitian or expert spokesperson?
Yeah, I mean that's a tough question, right? So,
Yeah.
hot topic. I will say that I've never partnered with a dietitian who didn't already align with the message.
Mhm.
And I have again never come across a dietitian who's just taking money to share any message, even if they don't believe in it. We partner with dietitians who are true experts in what they're talking about. And they also align with what science we're sharing or what message we're sharing. And that's really important for companies and brands to partner with dietitians because they have a platform, they are the experts, and they are trusted among, the different audiences and population. So what I would say is, there's definitely actors out in the media who are looking to portray dietitians in a specific way because they have their own agenda. But
Mhm.
from all the examples that I have seen on social media and other platforms, if you look back to that dietitian's past statement or past work, whether it's in that specific subject or other, I think you'll realize that the dietitians that work out in the media, be it social media, traditional, the message that they're sharing, they share it because it based on science and based on facts. While others may not agree with the science, it is still fact.
Yeah.
Well, I would say take a look at that if you're ever questioning whether a dietitian or other health professional is being honest. Just look back to their history and see what are the kind of content they posted or what kind of statements they've mentioned. I think it's very important for dietitians to continue to be in the media because there are a lot of other people that are not credentialed that are sharing messages, some of them science-based, but oftentimes not. Dietitians continue to be the experts in food and nutrition. And so we need to have a voice out where consumers are.
Yeah, and I think that some of the pushback from people trying to, I guess, vilify dietitians for speaking to the media on behalf of a company or a brand or promoting something can be a little daunting, right? For
Yeah.
people wanting to get into this space of nutrition communications. But I think, like you said, really leaning that on your expertise, knowing that you are speaking on behalf of the science and being intentional in what you do say. And then, of course, following all of the disclosure guidelines, right? And those regulations and things are changing. So important to stay up to date on those things if you do work in this space. You spoke about like how important it is to have dietitians in the media. What about dietitians of color, right? Diversified dietetics is all about increasing the diversity, making sure we are representative of the communities that we're serving. What do you think about really working to get more dietitians of color in the nutrition communication space? Is that something that crosses your radar often, or maybe a personal mission or anything like that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question from a personal perspective, but then also as a company, Ewo Global, we always try to look for people of all backgrounds to be able to support our projects.
Mhm.
I'm very happy to share that a few different projects at Ewo Global have partnered with members of the diversified dietetics community. There's certainly some folks that are always top of mind for specific projects. And so we've been really lucky to be able to partner and give a platform to dietitians from underrepresented groups.
Yeah.
But the fact remains that dietitian as a whole, the profession, tends to be not very representative of the US population, right? And so that has a little bit of a double effect where if there's not enough dietitians from underrepresented groups, period, in the profession, that means that there's like even less dietitians of color who are working in the media or who may specialize in a specific thing like digestive health or heart health or diabetes or anything of that sort. So it is a little challenging sometimes to find dietitians to partner with from underrepresented groups. But we always like to keep our eyes out for anyone who may be speaking, who may be emerging, that we could potentially partner with them in the future. But again, I'll admit it is a struggle. And I think a little bit of it is the dietitians of color making their presence known, right? And there's a bunch already doing it, but continuing to build their expertise and their value and their experience in the media space so that they can come up as we're, looking for partners for specific projects.
Mhm. I like that you say that, and wanted to inquire, but provide a moment for you to provide a plug. If there is, a database or anything that you would recommend or that you guys rely on to know, like, let me find a dietitian that specializes in this or who is representative of this group. What's your process for finding some of those dietitians?
So there's actually a couple of resources, 3 resources that are top of mind. And everyone, this is not pre-planned, but I have to plug Diversified Dietetics because there's a list on your website of dietitians from underrepresented groups in private practice. So we will often look at that if we're looking, in a specific region of the country or a specific subject matter expertise or any sort of maybe an invitation to an event. We'll take a look at that. We also take a look at speaking during the DD summits and look for potential new partners there. So the May summit that you guys do
Mhm.
or spring summit that you guys do every year, we'll take a look at that. And then also I know that the Diversified Dietetics team has hosted a communications workshop for the last couple of years, and we'll certainly look there for any emerging voices in the space. And I will those resources had led to partnerships on projects that Emo Global works on. But then beyond that, staying connected to the different groups. So within the academy, there's Laidan, Novidan, API, and other groups that, those are for dietitians of their specific backgrounds. So we like to stay plugged into those and see who from that group could potentially partner on projects too. And then, beyond those, just generally in the field, always looking up and see who is an emerging voice, who's making their presence known.
Yeah. So if you're looking to get in this space, check out those resources to get involved. I kind of want to pause for a second and ask kind of a fun question, or if you can provide an example of, some of the projects that you're mentioning working with dietitians and brands, because I think it's a very unique place to be, right? Like, could you provide an example, within the bounds of who you can mention and who you can't? Like, what are some projects that you partner with dietitians to do beyond like a webinar or something like that?
Yeah. So without mentioning any client names, I can share, in the past, we've partnered with a specific brand as part of their Better For You portfolio
Mhm.
that really wanted to highlight a specific product that was relevant for that season. It was Kambi. And so aside from being a comfort food, it was also very nutrient rich. So
Mhm.
we partnered with dietitians that had a platform on social media to spread the message about that specific product. But then we'll also partner with 8 companies earlier on in the process where they'll be trying to figure out what their nutrition strategy should be. And so taking a look at what's existing, like what their competitors are doing, any hot topics, trends, questions that are coming up in the field that they might be able to address, and helping that particular client navigate that conversation and then land in a place where they feel confident that they can share a message that is of value to the consumer, but also backed by science.
Mhm. Yeah. And you bring up a point in terms of, emerging trends and things like that with social media. And I have to ask the question because it's ever present. How do you feel like some of the technologies, things like AI and ChatGPT, like maybe how do you use those in your role? And then how do you feel like those sorts of things may be impacting the role of a dietitian as the nutrition expert to really engage with brands and audiences?
That is such a great question. I'll make another quick plug for Nutrition Informatics DPG. That's a DPG within the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and they really focus on a lot of the technology aspects of nutrition. And so they'll have a webinar coming up on AI specifically. If anyone's interested, it'll probably have happened already, so you can look back to see if you can catch the recording. But the ways that I'd use it personally in my role, I guess first, a warning that AI is not perfect and it makes a lot of mistakes. And so as you're putting in prompts and especially if you're using generative AI to come up with copy, text, any sort of recommendation, advice, questions that you have, just review everything critically because it is not perfect and it has shown to make mistakes. That said, my favorite way of using it is for efficiencies. So I might ask it to review certain copy that I may have drafted or to provide some thought starters.
Mm.
For example, if we're working on a specific, let's say, webinar, we have all this information, but we might ask it, how do you craft a really engaging title for this webinar? And so they'll have some thought starters, and then it's really up to the user to figure out what makes sense, what doesn't, and then elaborate from there. Another use case is to synthesize results. So maybe you have a big set of data that you want to summarize. So you can ask a platform like ChatGPT to give you some ideas. But again, you have to go back and review everything to make sure that it is accurate because it's not always. So I think there's some efficiency there, but it is not replacing dietitians anytime soon. So use it as an assistant rather than a replacement for your own judgment.
Yeah. Okay. So that's encouraging, using your nutrition expertise to vet and to verify some of the things that you may use ChatGPT for. Okay. Want to pivot just a little bit. As we know, the theme of this season is really around money and respect. And knowing that nutrition communications is here to stay, right? This
Yeah.
field is not going anywhere anytime soon. What do you feel like the trajectory can be for a dietitian, either in this field or looking to get into nutrition communications, in terms of, maybe increasing some of the ability to earn more compensation or to earn more respect as a dietitian?
Yeah. So if you think about doing it from the perspective of like your own business and you're the one communicating out, I think there is a lot of potential for growth financially and with a platform.
Mm.
I would say I'm not advocating anyone work for free, but you do have to do something,
Sure.
whether that's on behalf of yourself or a potential project, to show value to future partnerships and to grow your platform. And that doesn't have to be 50,000 followers on Instagram, but we do like to see that you are providing value and that you have a platform and you have expertise. So whether you're working a 9 to 5 and this is a passion project that you continue to build on the side, what I have to say is just continue building on that and start small and continue growing. If you're interested in working where I am, so like the agency side, the more in-house within brands and stuff, all the big companies in the US hire dietitians for a variety of different roles. They can swap. So you might have a large consumer packaged goods company who hires a lot of dietitians for research and development, for communications, for as part of the brand teams to make sure that any claims are evidence-based. And then you also have smaller brands who may hire a dietitian to be like the person that speaks about the health of that product or brand. So there's a few different ways you can come in. You were mentioning money and salaries and compensation. Going back a little bit to my earlier role, I mentioned our food service director, and it was really difficult for me to leave that role because I thought at the time that that was the most money that I was ever going to make as a dietitian.
Yeah.
I can share now that I make a lot more money than I did then, but it's sort of ingrained to dietitians that you can only make a certain amount of money and then don't expect anything else. Happy to share that working in this type of field, the average salary, I would say, is significantly higher than the average for dietitians overall in the country. So that's a great positive. However,
Very
if you're
incredible.
working on your own, and you're on your own business, it's really the salary compensation, the money that you earn has the potential to be limitless.
So really depending on setting that mindset, understanding that like you can have an impact, which I think a lot of us are. We're in the helping profession, right? Like we're driven to help others, but you can do that and still have more than a livable wage, right? Like you can be successful
Absolutely.
financially. I think the money power conversation is something we often shy away from. So that's really the point behind us really getting ahead of it this season and talking more about that. What would you say is like your favorite thing about working in nutrition communications?
Actually, I love working with other dietitians. So one of my favorite things of earlier roles was having a team of dietitians that I was able to work with. And now in my current role, there's a lot of dietitians that I work with, both at Evo Global, but then as I mentioned earlier, typically on our client side, we often work with other dietitians. So I feel like we speak the same language and can
Yeah.
communicate effectively. They can relate in a lot of ways. So I've always really enjoyed that component of working in this field, just being able to engage with other dietitians, learn about their story and, their journeys as well, and just be able to communicate in that way. And then we get to see each other at therapy, which is awesome.
It's always fancy that where we reunite,
Yeah.
whatever city we descend upon. Thinking back to your journey to where you are today and kind of the role that you do, the side of nutrition communications that you're on for your position with Eat Well Global, do you still have room or do you still dabble in any communications on the other side, whether it's with your photography or, maybe probably not working on behalf of a brand right now, but
Right.
what is that like for you?
I would say those aspects have turned more into hobbies than any side business. My photography in particular used to be very active in food photography. And then it came to a point where I really stopped enjoying it because I was thinking of it as a business. And so a lot of the joy that I found in being really creative turned more into like, I have to do this to meet a certain goal or similar. And so I've taken a step back in the last few years and really just, I continue to do photography, food and otherwise, but it's remained more of a hobby and something that I can do um, after I'm done working and not have to worry about, I have to do this to make a certain amount of money or I have to do this for a commitment that I made. And it's more enjoyable that way. So I do not actively engage on any sort of project outside of Equal Global, but it is something that I continue to enjoy doing. And that I think dietitians should all do, not photography, but having a creative outlet, because we think so much about science and about the technical aspects of nutrition,
Yeah.
that it's really nice to be able to disconnect and forget about that a little bit and use your more creative side just to have a fully fulfilled life.
Yeah. Even in this podcast, we're giving you your daily dose of counseling. Here's how you can live a more well-rounded life. And then kind of trying to round out our conversation, thinking back over like the course of your career so far, are there any like key moments that stand out or decisions that you made that really shaped where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few. Certainly the decision to leave the role that I was in as a food service director. I would not be here today in my current role if it wasn't
Mm.
for that decision, which included leaving, my home. I used to live in Miami. I'm based in Chicago. I have been for the last few years. And so that was a big one. I would say attending Fancy 2019 was also a big one because that's where I got to meet someone who still works at Evo Global. And through that connection, I was able to eventually apply for a role within the company and get hired. So those moments have been pretty significant. I will say, just generally, it's really important to network in this field. You never know who's out there or what role they're going to be in a couple of years. But making connections with anyone and everyone that you can to, help you move forward, but then also how do you help them move forward at some point? So whether that's LinkedIn or in person at Fancy, just making those connections, in the field or outside of the field. Sometimes it's nicer to have connections that are not dietitian because they bring a perspective that you perhaps may have not known otherwise. So those two key moments, because even leaving my food service director role, that decision was made in combination with speaking to other dietitians as part of networking. So that has been really instrumental in my career growth.
Yeah. And I know networking, even just the word can cause a little bit of anxiety for some folks.
Yeah.
And so we do have an episode on that coming, how to do that, especially as introvert.
Yeah. And so my partner hates networking. And I
Yeah.
feel for the same reason a lot of other people do, because some folks think that networking is I give you this, you give me that.
Right.
That's not what networking is. Networking is just connecting with other people and learning about them and listening. And, if there's an opportunity that comes up for you to be able to help them, then, that's great. But it's really more about making connections and having a community.
Yeah. That community piece, so good to keep that forefront as you're networking. Because even beyond just like needing help, it's good to just be able to, call someone or email someone, send them an IG message just to, this is something that I'm dealing with, need a listening ear or need some advice. So I love that you said that. And then any takeaways or advice that you want to leave listeners with related to, maybe your career as a whole, getting into nutrition communications, what it's like being a person of color in this field, anything like that.
Yeah. Well, aside from networking, which is a big thing, I always like
Yeah.
to mention that whenever I speak because it's so important. I will say one piece of advice that I recently got, so within this year, actually a quote that one of our team members shared with us. And that is that all failure is failure to adapt and all success is successful adaptation. And I can, you may have heard that in a few different ways, but I like this one because I feel like dietitians a lot of times may either have imposter syndrome or just think of failure as a negative thing, when really it's just you trying something new. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But it's about learning from that experience. I try to keep that nowadays top of mind so that anything that doesn't go my way or the way that was expected, it framed in a more positive light rather than a negative light.
Yeah, I have a similar one, and it's about like failing forward, right? Like you're going to learn
Yes.
something from this, but don't be afraid to try something new and move forward. I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much again, Luis, for joining us. And that is it for this episode of Feed Me the Facts. You can find this and other episodes of Feed Me the Facts on Apple Podcasts and at our website, www.diversifydietetics.org. Join us next time as we explore more topics related to money and respect. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Feed Me the Facts. We'd love for you to join the conversation by sending in your thoughts, questions, and voice notes to FMTF for Feed Me the Facts at diversifydietetics.org. Your insights and experiences are invaluable to us, and we can't wait to include your voice in our discussion. This podcast was brought to you by Diversify Dietetics, a nonprofit community dedicated to increasing the racial and ethnic diversity in the field of nutrition and dietetics. You can find this and other episodes of Feed Me the Facts on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as on our website, www.diversifydietetics.org. Stay up to date on what's happening in the DD community by subscribing to our monthly newsletter, The Squeeze. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. You can follow the DD community online on Instagram and Facebook at Diversify Dietetics.